What if I told you that there are a lot of black men out there who are playing out scripts that were created long time ago? And so in this video, we're going to be talking about the history of the black man and how can we intentionally disrupt these scripts that were created to harm us. Let's get into it. Welcome to The Becoming. My name is Dr. Curvins Clement, and in this channel, we help people become the person that they've always wanted to be and struggled to become. And so, why don't we get straight into this important video that you're going to be watching today? And so, let's talk about the history of the black man. Now, on your screen, you see that word that I'm realizing that I have to engage the system, right? Because if I want to get these important messages out, there are things that I cannot say because of censorship. And so with that being said, there will be a lot of censoring of myself, unfortunately, because I have to navigate the systems that are at play. So let's get right into it. One of the most important things that a lot of black men that I don't think realize, and I'll just say this up the front, I'm not somebody who created a YouTube channel in their basement, right? I get the opportunity and the privilege to work with a lot of black men. And this is one of the most important things that we talk about when it comes to their mental health. And specifically, that S word that you see on the screen. So with that being said, in the past, when slavery started, there was an aspect of forced intimacy, right? And one of the things that happened during slavery was that black men were chosen based on their physique. And in their physique, it would lead them to, unfortunately, I don't like to say this word, but bread. And they were forced to mate with the black women in the camps, right? And so with that being said, what I want you to see in this dynamic is that when we were brought here, there was already this foundation being laid where the black body, particularly the black man's body, was already being trained to understand that your worth is based off of your physique and your ability. And so you begin to see the script play out, particularly on the screen. You will see it says the forced intimacy and reproduction, right? Now, when you move on to the next segment, and I'm forgetting that I have audio learners, so let me communicate what you're seeing on the screen in a very censoring way, unfortunately. So a lot of people don't realize that the impact of the evolutionary theory, okay? So as I've become a counselor, I've realized that there are foundations that need to be laid in order to be utilized to enforce narratives. And the evolutionary theory was one of those things. Let me give you context. So if I create a theory that basically says that as humans, we have evolved from this species and into who we are today, I can use this same theory to rationalize the treatment of the black community. Let me give you context. In order during history, during slavery, for them to rationalize their behavior, they had to say that we are set apart. We are different from these people, right? And so the way that they created this story was basically by explaining that we evolve from monkeys, and therefore we should be allowed to treat these people in a way that are harmful. And so, and it makes sense that they're slaves. And so why is this important, particularly in the history for black men, particularly their S history? It's important because I want you to understand that there was foundations being laid and scripts being laid all the way back from history. And so as the civil rights movement came out and as the black community was freed and started to truly prosper, what ended up happening was that they had to find a different way to restrain, particularly the black man. Now, in this video, black women have their own story. And in this video, I'm not going to address that. I'm specifically going to focus on the experience of the black man. Now, that doesn't mean that the black woman's story is not important. What I'm specifically saying is that both could be true, which is the experiences of black women are important and need to be shared, and black men's stories also. So with that being said, in this podcast, I'm specifically focusing, or on this video, I'm specifically focusing on the experience of the black man. Okay. So with that being said, when civil rights movement began and we got our rights to walk in the world as humans, they had to figure out different way to oppress. So with that being said, they continued on the foundation that they've laid down throughout history. And so with that being said, particularly with the black man, you began to see different symbols to represent particularly the black man. And what you will see here is one, the monkey, two, Mandingo, and three, BBC. Now, again, with censorship, I cannot go in any further with those words. But what I will say, though, is that these were scripts being played out, particularly for the black man, in that you go from being a slave to being a human that can pursue their passions. And from that, the black community started to prosper. And a lot of people don't realize that during the 1970s, the 1980s, the black community was tremendously prosperous, right? And so what particularly happened to the black man was that the narratives about the black man being harmful and being this dominant figure and that we need to be afraid of this individual and this person is dangerous really started to take hold. And also this sexual oh dang, I done said the word, the S symbol, right, that their bodies are an S symbol and that therefore it's to be exploited, then the fetishization of the black body really started to take hold. And so you may be wondering, okay, Curran, to all of this information, okay, why is this relevant? It's relevant because when I work with my black men, one of the things that I focus on is the idea that your identity was being created way before you were born. And that a lot of black men are playing out these scripts and they have no idea that it is history and history built on them living out their script. And so in order for you to deconstruct this narrative, you have to acknowledge that there was an environment cultivated for me to play out this script in a way that is unhelpful. And Currents, what is this script? And the script is that, as you saw in this video, which is that my worth is based on my ability to perform S. I know, I'm sorry. If you don't know what I mean, SEX, okay? That's what I mean. And so with that being said, what we're beginning to see is that this important dynamic that needs to be talked about, which is the experience of the black man. So with that being said, let's move on to the next slide because this is, I want to keep it going. So one of the things that we have to talk about when we're looking at the history of the black man is hip hop. Okay. Hip hop was the first medium that the black man used to express their emotions, their experiences, and to process what they're going through. And as a mental health provider working with black men, I actually use this medium to help black men process their trauma and all the things to process their pain. And so black men created hip hop to vocalize their experience and again to process what they're going through. And like every medium that's created, it was hijacked. And we went from talking about the pain of being a black man in a white society to this I'm so frustrated. I gotta censor myself. But to creating S scripts about women. And I believe that when you look at these three founders that created hip hop, what you'll realize is that I believe that they didn't create hip hop to objectify women. I believe they created hip hop to vocalize their pain and their experience. And so what you see in hip hop is that we go from really a space to truly express their emotions to now again to live out the script that the black man is a S is a let's just say a S being. Okay. We have to acknowledge, and both could be true, which is that Tyler Perry have created a lot of opportunities for black actors to start their careers. We gotta acknowledge that. That's a true statement. Also, the other thing that we also have to acknowledge is that his success has come from reinforcing these harmful narratives that were created about black men. So in his videos, what you will see is a lot of these scripts about black men being womenizers, being uninvolved fathers to struggling with substance use. Now, I want to acknowledge that yes, black men do struggle with substance use, struggle with addiction, and all that is true. And there are black men out there who are not involved with their families and with their kids. I'm not saying that that's not true. What I do want to point out is that unfortunately, at the expense of the success of the black man of Tyler Perry, he also reinforced messages that also weren't helpful, particularly for the black man. And so I wanted to acknowledge this in this video because it's very important for us to talk about. Now, I also wanted to point out in this video about the movies that actually displayed the true experiences of black men. And so let's jump right into that. So as you'll see on the screen, and for people who are my audio listeners, one of the things that I talked that I want to identify. Oh, let me go back to Tyler's story real quick. When you look at his top videos, a lot of those top movies, not videos, a lot of those top movies were videos that did not display the black man and his true reflection. His top performing videos again reinforce these harmful narratives that black men are not involved in their families, which are all narratives that were created to try to suppress the black man after the civil rights movement and after we got our rights. And so I just want to acknowledge that both can be true, that yes, Tyler Perry did help the black community in the sense of creating opportunity for black actors to get the credit and the credit they deserve. And I also want to acknowledge that he did harm particularly the black man and the representation of the black man. And he reinforced narratives that were created to harm the black man. And so with that being said, these are some of the movies and the shows that I had the opportunity to watch that really moved me as a black man. Because in these movies and video and shows, what I saw was, when I think of black men, these are the true experiences. And so, if you are my audio listeners, one of the it's a show. It's called The Cross. Very powerful show. I love it. Again, it displays the black man, and he's the lead investigator, which is pretty awesome. And not only is he the lead investigator, he's also displayed as being very smart, very intellectual, very capable, right? Upright citizen. And he also, in this show, it also acknowledges that he comes from a neighborhood that wasn't great, and yet he still was able to find success, right? Then you move on to this very powerful movie. This movie actually made me emotional watching it. And the reason why was that in this movie, Devotion, you were able to witness a black man that loved his wife, that was dedicated to her well being. And I thought that was a very powerful display of the black man's experience. And the black man that I know of and the black man that I get to serve, these are men that want to be better, that want to show up in their life in a way that's honoring to who they want to be. And so um, that was a very powerful movie. You should definitely check it out. And the next thing is The Pursuit of Happiness. We all know that movie. One of Will Smith's powerful movies of his career. And in this video, it really displays the black man who loved his kid, who loved his son, his young king, and was willing to do whatever it takes to provide for his young son. And just a really good example of the black man that I see, the black man that want to show up and be a good father, right? Not the Tyler Perry narrative that black men are not involved, they're deadbeats, and all those things, again, that are unhelpful. And then I also want it to be true, and I talk about Denzel in this movie called Fences. And in this movie, I don't want to say that black men are great and that we don't got no struggles. And this movie, Fences, really displayed the tension that black men face on wanting to move forward and still having to navigate the historical context. Yes, slavery is a long time ago, but there are still things right now in the US particularly that we have to face, that we have to deconstruct, that we're still trying to break free of, that are still relevant. And so although slavery is a long time ago, there are still scripts being played out right now. There are still black men living under these scripts. And it's so relevant in this movie. And Denzel did a great job of displaying the tension that black men face as they're trying to reconcile what they've been through and try to be someone different. And so, why is these movies important, Curvins? We need to see more movies that display the black man in truth, not reinforcing any of the garbage that have been created about us. And so I'm not trying to say that black men are perfect and that we don't have things going on. Shoot, when I think about my story and what I've come from, there are things that I had to work through. There are things that I had to deconstruct. There were narratives that I was living under that I had to break out of. And so what I'm not saying is that we don't have our struggles. What I am saying is that there are messages out there are scripts out there that we're still submitting to, even though we're not in slavery. And so I wanted to really echo this in this video. And so I want to take a moment that if you are enjoying this video, if you are getting information, if you find this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe, because there'll be more content about how do I show up as a person that I want to be, because that's what this YouTube channel is about. So moving on to the next slide, which is Terry Crews. Now, I've had the privilege to meet this amazing man. And one of the reasons why this is important is because A lot of people don't know about the statistics regarding sexual abuse of the black man. And Terry Crews' story is very important because it displays that as a black man, there are times where even our story is dismissed. And one of the things that happened in Terry Crews' story was that he was assaulted. And as he came out and told his story, which was vulnerable in itself, right? A big black man coming out and sharing his story about his ex assault and in his vulnerability, he got dismissed and ridiculed for it. And what I find is that a lot of the black men that I serve, their story overlaps with Terry Crews' story, where their story was dismissed and not acknowledged. And so this is a very important element in the story of the black man, because when you look at slavery, there was a lot of assaults happening during slavery by the white woman. And so one of the things that I want you to see, black man, is that the struggles that you're going through is passed down from generation to generation, and that your story is important. And you do not have to live under your history. You can break free from that. And Terry Crews is an example of that. There's an important quote that I live by and this podcast embodies, which is, I'm not the example, I'm the proof. And what this quote means for me is that I want you to know that I'm not perfect and that I had to overcome a lot of things that has happened throughout my story. And what I want you to see is that it's possible. And when I think about Terry Crews' story, it's exactly that I do not have to be bound by what has happened to me. And a big thing, particularly in the stories of the black men that I serve, is assaults that they've went through that have really impacted how they show up as what I would say sexual beings. And so this is very a relevant topic that is tied to this narrative that my worth is defined by my ability and how I show up in the bedroom. There are so many different things that are complicit to that narrative, black man. And I want you to know that what you feel, what you think is connected back to all of these different things, all these different elements. So let's keep it moving because I don't want to do a long video like I did last time. So one of the things that you'll see in this slide is that let's go all the way down to black women. 7.4% of black women have experienced intimate partner violence other than rape in their lifetime. 7.4%. I want you to see this other statistic though, which is 14.8% of black men have experienced intimate partner violence, IPV, in their lifetime. Why is this relevant? We are one of the few, we are the one and only community where you are seeing that the black man's experience and the violence that are occurred are higher than their woman counterpart. And again, I do not want to dismiss the experiences of black women. This is not what this video is about. What I'm trying to truly convey in this video is that, black man, your story and what you've went through, you are not the only one. And that there are a lot of others who have experienced what you've been through, and they have had the opportunity to work through it, and not allow that to define them. And so what I'm wanting you to see, particularly in the slide, is that you are not the only one, that there are other people like you who have experienced what you're going through or what you've gone through. Okay. So let's move on to the next slide. I specialize in working with people struggling with addiction. And what I want you to see is that going back to IPV, which is trauma, or S, abuse, is trauma. And so what you're seeing here is that trauma and addiction overlap. And that in order for you to really address your addiction, you also have to acknowledge your S, trauma. And S stands for SEX. Okay, so just putting it out there. And so that's very relevant. And I know it's hard, and I know we're told not to display, like Terry Crews, to not display and not talk about our story, not talk about our experiences. And brother, in order for you to heal from what you've been through, you have to acknowledge that you've been through it. And there are brothers like me who specialize in working with you that will create space for you to process your pain. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. Another important aspect that I wanted to identify in this story is that gender and race is relevant to your story, because in patriarchy, it talks about that the man is more important than the woman. And what I want to identify is that those experiences are not reflected, particularly in the Black community, when it comes to Black women and Black men. You see that Black women are being more successful in education in regards to the job market and all these different things over the Black man. And so in that, there are two things that are very relevant to your healing journey, which is that you have to talk about being a man and disrupting these narratives about masculinity and suppressing your emotions and all these different things that are relevant. There's also the race aspect of being Black that also needs to be addressed. And all of these elements really create an environment for you to really process the things that you have been through. And if you have a counselor where you haven't addressed these topics, you may need to find another one, right? Because all of these cultural identities are very important to your story, being a man and being Black. And these are the elements that we also have to reconcile regarding these scripts that we've learned throughout generations and generations. All right. So with that being said, if you enjoyed this video, not enjoyed it, because I know you're not going to enjoy this video. Let's say if you were able to get a lot of information out of this video, what I would like for you to do is subscribe to this channel, because there's more information that's going to be coming out about how do I become the person that I've always wanted to be and struggled to become. I also would like for you to drop in the comments about what is one thing that you're walking away with from this video. What is one thing that I learned from this video? And I would like for you to post, I would like for you to drop in the chat. And also, if you have any questions for me regarding this video or things that you would like for me to explore, or expound more on in this video, please drop in the chat, because I also want to make sure to create content that is helpful and edifying, because I want to help you become the person that you wanted to be, right? And not the person that society has told you to be. And so please drop it in the comment section of different things that you want me to focus on, and I will make sure to respond and add that to my content, right? There will be a video right now that's probably popping up where you can look at other videos that I've created. And so with that being said, go be great. Change is possible.